Alright, even though this list has been made quite a few times, I'm going to make my version of what I find to be the worst boss battles I've faced. I'm really sorry for the long delay, but I lost the script. Now that I found it, it's time for the countdown that a lot of you have been waiting for. Other than the obvious one per franchise restriction, and the play before put rule, there is one restriction. They cannot be final bosses. I already made that list 4 months ago. Let's start the list. Does anyone have any bug spray? Because I can't stand King Zing. To hurt King Zing, you play as Squawks, and its weak point is a stinger. The problem? Its stinger is very small and hard to hit. You need to be under it in order to hit it. This wouldn't be that bad if it weren't for two things. One is that Squawks can only shoot in a very low arc-shaped pattern. And two, the fact that he keeps zigzagging around the room. Sometimes you won't even know where he is until he kills you. You know about those bosses that force you to go back to the beginning of a level to face them again? King Zing is the inverse of that. Once he's dead, you have to go through the levels Ghostly Grove, Haunted Hall, and Gusty Glade. And the Kong College is not found until after you beat all 3 of them, so you can't save until you get there. So if you get game over on any of those 3 levels, you have to go back to King Zing and beat him again before you can take on these levels again. I've talked about the main flaw with the bosses in Super Paper Mario is that most of them take mere seconds to defeat. But ironically enough, my pick for the worst boss in the game doesn't have this flaw. This chameleon is not only completely creepy, but the fight with him is awful. He can turn invisible to sneak around the room so you can't see him, so you must flip to 3D and see where his shadow is so that he doesn't sneak up on you. And don't forget that if you spend too long in 3D form, you will take damage for it. Another thing is how sometimes, when you think you have him, he flashes the room with his camera so he can get away. He can also eat you, and you'll have to shake the Wii remote to get free. But what's my most hated thing about this battle? Well, also summon some meow bots that even meow when you stomp on them. I think that cats are adorable when they meow, but when you try to add cuteness to a boss fight, it makes it feel like the game is laughing at my pain. Especially when you combine it with the music, which isn't bad either, but it is when combined with the meowing noises in this fight. King Zing may be worse gameplay-wise, but at least that fight didn't laugh at my misery. And also, if you choose him by accident later in the game, which by then you probably forgot about him by this point, you're forced to fight him a second time. Francis would have been much higher on the list if I didn't actually find 8 bosses that are worse than this. By now, everyone should know about how irritating Whitney is as a gym leader. I just can't believe that there are actually some people who defend Whitney. I'm not saying that's bad to like a notorious boss fight, but the fact that people resort to calling people crybabies just for hating her ticks me off. Almost as much as the boss itself. Whitney's Clefairy isn't too much of a problem unless its metronome becomes something extremely powerful, but that Miltank, oh man. This piece of ugly is such a pain. Seriously, even in the anime this thing was a pain. This Pokemon knows Roll Out, Stomp, Milk Drink, and Attract. With Stomp, this attack can make your Pokemon flinch very easily. With Milk Drink, Whitney might as well not need any potions because she'll keep restoring health rapidly. And it already has bulky defenses and absurd HP. Roll Out will keep building up power, making it a massive pain. I know what you're thinking. Lower its accuracy. I don't use those cheap methods. Paralyze it. You don't have many paralysis moves at this point. Put it to sleep. Sleep moves almost never hit. Switch out to a Pokemon that can resist Rollout. Even then, it's hard to endure. Don't forget about Miltank's Attract move, which can make your Pokemon almost never be able to attack. And by now, you likely won't have a lot of female Pokemon to help you survive that. Normal type Pokemon are only weak against fighting moves. The easiest way you can get a fighting type Pokemon is to get Machop, which you need to trade for. You can also get Heracross to make it a much better strategy, but at the same time, it's much harder to find. In Gold and Silver, you only need Drowsy for the Machop, but in Crystal, it requires capturing an Abra, which escapes almost instantly, unless you want to grind up on coins to purchase it at the game corner. Even with Machop, the attack will still hit it. I mean, while I hate Francis as a character more because of how creepy he is, I still hate the Whitney fight more because of how it has more flaws. More than the fight with Claire, because at least Kingdra didn't remind us of Mary Moo Cow. And even after Whitney is defeated, it isn't satisfying in the slightest. She cries like a big baby. For someone who's like 16 years old or something, she should know better than that. Oh, I'm the big meanie? I'm not the one who came up with the world's cheapest strategies. Stop being a woman child and give me the badge, you idiot! Does that sound terrible? The worst is yet to come. The reason the boss fight this atrocious is only number 8 on the list is because the top 7 are slightly worse than this one. You guys recall the awesome boss fight with Argarok in Twilight Princess? That is one of the greatest boss fights I have ever faced. How can you possibly make this boss fight bad? How about replacing the best parts of the fight with one of the cheapest advantages in the whole game? The reason the Argarok fight isn't as atmospheric as it was in Twilight Princess is because this is a different style of Zelda game using the Dynasty Warriors formula, but they didn't try to make Argarok good. Every time he shows up, it will repeatedly rain fireballs on the base, and in this game, if your base is destroyed, it's an instant game over. The real boss fight begins when you use a Great Fairy to help you in an admittedly decent cutscene. You'll face a couple rounds with him before the actual fight, but during the actual fight, how do you hurt him? Grab onto his tail with a hookshot and then pull him to the ground. Except it keeps spamming fireballs on you, which will make you lose your grip. Well, when he's not moving his tail constantly to the point of making it really hard to hit him, you need to destroy him because it's mandatory for beating the level, but by the time you face it, your base is probably well over halfway destroyed, and there's still a lot of minions heading towards it. So do you return to the base and stop them? No! If you do that, you'll only lure Argarok to the base and put the base in even more danger of falling. And you better hope you can settle things quick, because after a couple minutes, Zant will head towards the allied base, putting your base in more danger than it currently is, which will give you more temptation to lure Argarok to the base. Zant isn't too bad to deal with, but Argarok is. Perhaps the worst part about this fight is how this creature was the same creature that was one of my favorite bosses in gaming, and is a terrible boss in this game. And at least the fight in Hyrule Warriors didn't drag down that epic boss fight as much as some disgraces to awesome bosses. But remember that final bosses aren't allowed in this version of the list. The level was good, but this boss doesn't belong in a level this good. You also have to face some of them in the final level, and even then they're better because in that level, you face them from the beginning so your base will have more health at the time. So, you're in Sector X, and you hear about the secret weapon that bad guys have been creating. So what is this secret weapon? A robot named Spyborg. First thing, his voice is just creepy.
I will terminate all enemies.
Spyborg isn't really on here for the fight with him, but for one big thing. This is your last chance to get onto the right path with a good ending. Once you take down half of his health, they'll change to its second form where it'll start attacking like crazy. The music goes from awesome to irritating, and if you don't take down the remainder of its health within the next 10 seconds, which requires insane speed by the way, Slippy will fly up to him like an idiot, and he will get slapped away instantly. Unlike in the rest of the game, he will not be KO'd. It'll be worse than if he gets KO'd, because you'll have to go off the path to rescue him. Not only do you lose your last chance of getting to the real Andros, but you are sent to planet Titania because Slippy crash landed there. The Landmaster controls are stiff, and the boss you face there is almost as bad as Spyborg thanks to the Landmaster's controls. And all this because you didn't kill Spyborg fast enough. I would forgive this if this boss had something that I enjoyed about it, but is there something I enjoyed about it? Not really. Oh, and because Slippy is no longer with you, you won't see how much health Spyborg has remaining. Awak. How do I pronounce his name? Well, the bird from Ristar is unforgiving. This boss is one of those examples of doing nothing but avoiding a volley of attacks while trying to dodge his attacks in the battlefield, which is so short and crammed. Some older Mario bosses do that, but they didn't drag on, and at least the ones that did take a while to beat had a great mechanic that could hold you over. What's the mechanic here? He takes over the songbird's position in singing and makes the music sound horrible. This thing sings to create messed up music notes that hurt my eyes just looking at them, and they wouldn't be too annoying to dodge if the area where you fight him wasn't so small. to attack him, knock him off his pedestal, and after that, he'll tumble towards you, and since he barely goes into the air when tumbling thanks to his size, it's hard to avoid this. After knocking him off his pedestal, you also have to keep hitting him, but he also has a dive attack which is so fast and hard to dodge. Even the rubble that falls from the ceiling can hurt you. How is anyone supposed to know that something that looked like part of the background could hurt you? I hate this game! And like in the rest of the game, beating him requires waiting. A lot of waiting. It's ironic that the first level in the game that I actually enjoyed had the same boss that made me rage quit this game. While I thought that Banjo-Kazooie was a better game than Banjo-Tooie, I'll admit Banjo-Tooie has the better bosses, with a couple exceptions. Case in point, Lord Woo Fak Fak. No, I didn't just say what you thought I said. His name only sounds like that, even though this is a kid's game. Why do they think this would be a good idea? It doesn't matter if you're in normal form or in submarine form. He can turn a lot faster than you, so you won't see where he's coming from until you get brutally punished. Wanna know how you kill this boss? You must attack the flashing boils on it to make them shoot out blood. Ugh! Did I just say that? First they make his name sound like a bad word, then they make blood come out of him. This is a kid's game! After that gruesome boss strategy, you must shoot him in the eyes. But now that he can see much better, he'll be able to hit you much easier, and you're forced to stay in front of him at all times while still facing him. Except he swims closer to you, and turning is still badly controlled here. You can face him in normal form or in submarine form. In normal form, you'll keep swimming to the corners to get more eggs, where you won't see his attacks coming up behind you. In submarine form, it's not as bad since you have unlimited torpedoes, but don't forget that not having the eggs is nowhere near the main annoyance with this fight. I mentioned Sosia a while ago, but I couldn't help it. Let's see, what does Sosia do? It repeatedly rams you against the walls, and then when you finally get up, he'll ram the walls again. And then the cycle continues over and over and over and over and over and over again until you die. That can literally happen. I mean, do you know how long it takes before you can move again? You sometimes have to wait until you die, which can take up to 3 minutes. 3 minutes of literally not being able to do anything. That is horrible boss design incarnate. Thankfully, he doesn't have a lot of health, making it faster to end this terrible battle, if you do manage to reach that point. But either way, if it weren't for that, Sosia would have definitely been number 1. Still, even the people who like Shadow of the Colossus hate this boss. Young Xehanort is an incredibly awful boss fight. I already despise his character because he never leaves you alone, but the boss fight with him is plain horrible. And no, he's not the final boss. That goes to Vanitas, so young Xehanort qualifies for this list. He will constantly warp around the battlefield and combo you to no end, and right when you think you've got him, he will use his limit break attack. Here he can destroy the clock in the center of the room. That wouldn't be too hard, but he will repeatedly clone himself and have them combo you rapidly when you get too close. He'll keep you a very far distance away from the clock, and once you run out of time, we get one of the most pointless, unskippable cutscenes ever. Come on. Please stop this cutscene. Is it over yet? No? What's the point of this? Seriously, you may have to wait longer with Sosia, but at least Sosia had lower HP, making the battle shorter. Guess we should go back and look at what we have so far before we get to number 1. Number 10, King Zing Sting. Number 9, Creepy Chameleon. Number 8, why does everyone defend Whitney? Number 7, how to mess up a good boss. Number 6, Spyborg. Number 5, the bird whose name is really hard to pronounce. Number 4, I can't control this thing! Number 3, it's no use! Number 2, Young Xehanort. If you remember my annoying bosses list, you probably remember me saying that Booth's Guardian is the worst boss I faced. I still stand by that. Well, the worst non-final boss I faced, the Booth's Guardian is an awful boss fight. I explained why that is back on my annoying bosses list, and I don't know what else to say about it as why it's my most hated boss fight. There are no force fields in this room, not even temporary force fields, and thanks to that, you are constantly taking damage throughout the fight. It does spawn some enemies that you can kill for health, but by the time it spawns them and you gain health from them, you'll still have less health than you did before the enemies were spawned. Especially with this abomination rapidly chipping away at your health, in addition to the air damage. He can only be hit when he's in normal form. He can stall the battle when he takes the boost ball form, where he can literally take no damage, which literally serves no purpose other than to stall the battle. And defeating Boost Guardian is the only way to get to Boost Ball. If you don't kill it, you don't get to Boost Ball, which by the way is one of my favorite upgrades in this game. Oh, by the way, the Boost Ball probably could have really helped me in this fight. Look, I understand that it's not called the Boost Guardian for nothing, but come on! On Veteran Mode, it would have even been the hardest boss I've ever faced because of how it's killed me off more times than any other boss I've faced. Yep, despite the fact that it's a required boss that serves no impact on the story other than guarding one of Samus's abilities, it could have been my pick for the hardest boss I've ever faced. Thankfully, it was recently topped by Master Core, which is actually an important boss, but the fact that boss this random was my hardest boss for a while makes this my pick